Today's CCNA term of the day is NAT64. Now, we're not talking about just regular NAT, regular network address translation. NAT64 is a tool that we could use as we're transitioning from an IPv4 only network to an IPv6 only network. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I've got a client that only speaks IP version 6, and I want to talk to a server that only speaks IP version 4. How is that possible? Well, let's say that I make my DNS request. I want to go to, let's say it's kwtrain.com, and I go out to my DNS server and I'm requesting an IP address for this domain name. Well, a regular DNS server would say, okay, I've got an A record for that. That's an IP version 4 address record, and it would send that IP version 4 address back to me, but that's not what I want. I'm only speaking IPv6. I need an IPv6 address returned to me. That's where a DNS64 server comes in. A DNS64 server can dynamically create a quad A record, an IPv6 record, out of an A record. How does it do that? Because an IP version 6 address is 128 bits in length, an IP version 4 address is only 32 bits in length. Well, it's going to prepend a 96-bit prefix onto our IPv4 address to give us our 128-bit address. So now that DNS64 server has dynamically created a quad A record. It returns the information to my IPv6 only client, and now I can send out my packet destined for this IPv6 address. But I'm really going to an IPv4 server. But I've got a NAT64 router in the middle, and that NAT64 router realizes that I'm going to an IPv4 address, so it's going to strip off those leading 96 bits and send the packet on to its destination. The challenge is, what about return traffic? When that traffic comes back from the IPv4 server trying to get back to my IPv6 client, how does it do that? Well, that's the magic of a NAT64 router. It's going to create a mapping. It can be dynamic or it could be a static mapping, but it's going to have a mapping that assigns an IP version 4 address to my IPv6 device. So when that packet comes back in from the IPv4 server, then it's going to translate that into my IPv6 address. And that's how we can have bidirectional communication using NAT64.